earlier, and the Diocese of Sheffield told us that the trustees of the Network Church Sheffield, which includes St Thomas's, have accepted the report of the independent inquiry in full, and that they have developed and put into effect a comprehensive action plan to implement the report's recommendations. The Avanti Secondary School in North London was opened 12 years ago by the late Queen, no less, and was this country's first state-funded Hindu school. It's now on the shortlist for a prize in the World's Best Schools Awards, organised by the education charity T4, and one of its teachers has just picked up a prize at the TES Awards. The school sets great store by disciplines associated with Hinduism, like yoga, meditation, as Naomi Wellings reports.
Familiar scenes across the country, pupils signing each other's T-shirts and reflecting on the end of their time in secondary school.
My name's Tiana. I just finished year 11. My primary school was full of a lot of different religions, and I think my parents sent me to Avanti because it's a pretty well-known school, and I think they wanted me to, get in touch with my spiritual side more.
My name's Path, and I'm glad to go into year 12. So I didn't come from an Avanti primary school, so not many people came to Avanti from there. A lot of people responded kind of confused, like, what is this school? Because most people didn't know about it, and what they had thought about it wasn't in the greatest light. But after catching up with them again, I'm still in contact with many of them. They seem quite impressed actually with what goes on in our school. At Avanti, there's a different kind of discipline, and the students flourish better in this environment from what I experienced with my friends from other schools.
I think going to the temple room in the morning before my exams and then hearing the kirtan, it really just de-stresses you. It's just a way to relax.
Spiritual practices begin most days at Avanti, from yoga, wisdom, poetry, art, to kirtan or praise, in this case to Krishna. It takes place in a glass-walled classroom, light and cool, with a traditional shrine at the front, garlanded with artificial flowers in shades of pink. For Ariana, who's in year 8, kirtan has been very special. But what makes Ariana's experience remarkable is that unlike the 98% of other pupils, she isn't from a Hindu background, but from a Muslim family. Ariana joined Avanti from a local secular primary school rather than from one of the Avanti feeder schools.
People have said to me, they're like, you're Muslim, why are you in a Hindu school? How do your parents cope with it? I'm like, if I'm okay with it and if I feel comfortable, if my parents are okay with it, then everything's fine. We went to this trip and I really connected to God, and since then I've loved Kirtan and I just love going because it just connects to me spiritually.
Every lesson begins with a Hindu chant, yet out of the 180 places each year, only 30 are ring-fence places for practicing Hindus. It's largely catchment which determines the vast majority of students being from a Hindu background. The school is hugely oversubscribed, with 700 applications last year. Agnostic head teacher Simon Arnold has worked in schools in the area for many years, before coming here 8 years ago.
That's one of the biggest differences I've noticed, is that you can use our values of kind of character formation, educational excellence and spiritual insight, and it creates more opportunities. And that's what I've noticed is potentially the biggest difference, is that the families are very keen to embrace all elements of the school's values rather than just one or two. We make sure that we interact with schools in terms of sports competitions. Lots of our students are involved in Duke of Edinburgh and therefore do outreach to communities. And I think it's those things that make sure we are kind of part of the kind of British values and British society. So there's not that sense of being in a Hindu faith bubble within the school.
Avanti has a good Ofsted and is due another in the next 18 months. It's been praised for the spiritual aspect of its education. Yet all schools, whether faith-based or secular, are legally required to hold daily collective worship. Former Government National Curriculum Advisor Dr. Stephen Curran believes this education law needs revision because in state schools it's often neither followed nor policed.
Because I think in the end that legislation should reflect what's actually happening, because if you're not going to enforce it, what's the point of having it? We can't force people to worship. It has to be consensual. But yes, I do think that schools with a more secular base could always look at what other schools are doing and incorporate anything that they find helpful.
So how's the heart centre? Deep breath in.
If Avanti wins the prestigious T4 award, it hopes to use it as a platform to share its experience of writing yoga into the syllabus, to encourage other non-Hindu schools to appreciate its value.
Hi, my name's Mr. Dharmik Meghi. I'm in charge of examinations, UCAS and post-16 careers at Avanti House Secondary School.
Do you ever have times when parents say, look, my son's really struggling with maths, can he just drop yoga and just do algebra?
I think our parents, more than saying, oh, can they drop yoga or do this, I think they're more supportive of actually how can we be more organised or how can we be more resilient with our time and make it work for our child. They understand that Avanti's here for the holistic picture, not just the academics.
And indeed, a holistic approach may be behind the Education Act stipulation that collective worship be a daily requirement. Former teacher Grania Hallahan is from TeacherTap, which surveys teachers. She recently polled 2,000 school leaders and found that 70% were opposed to daily collective worship being a requirement. And in 2022, she found that 57% of the 8,000 teachers surveyed didn't have daily collective worship in their schools. She says secular heads have a tricky balance to strike.
I know from speaking to school leaders, when they've tried to introduce mindfulness in their schools, there's some resistance from parents because they see it as religious. The tricky thing is with religion that there's always somebody that doesn't like it. You know, you'll always be met with some resistance. There's people who see their atheism as a faith in itself almost. So it's impossible to please all of the people all of the time, but I definitely think there's space in the conversation to talk about ways that you could do it better and what faith schools can teach non-faith schools and sharing good practice.
Grania Hallahan ending that report from Naomi Wellings.